Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Father of a Stolen Child, Neil, 10th Man, Eli, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Morning, morning.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
What's happening?
So we're going to have a subtle alteration to one of the housekeeping questions, which is a relatively new question. Formerly, any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent will now be any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline. So the inference with curved adjacent is that you're going to be utilising the trig, I use my words carefully, of celestial navigation in order to acquire your position. That is done after the fact, i.e. your acquisition of the elevation angle in the first instance. That's just two straight lines meeting at a vertex. No triangles at this stage. That's a flat Earth measurement. Can only be done on a flat Earth, can only be justified on a flat Earth. If you think you're on a sphere, you'll be justifying the angle measurement from the centre of an Earth that's spherical, cut in half to give you an equatorial plane to measure that flat Earth angle from. Nobody's standing at the centre of a sphere, and your justification for it is pathetic. Meanwhile, we actually do measure angles on the surface. Elevation angles prove the Earth is flat. Thus forth, every time we ask the question, it will be asked as follows. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline? I was actually asking, not rhetorical.
No, you can't do that. You can never do that. It's impossible.
If you have a good baseline, you might cause a rift.
So in the pre-show, we were looking at the claims of this great circle and then the depictions that they describe with 90 degrees not matching their description of having a curved baseline. In some of them, they superimpose a flat line over the top or underneath their curved line to make it clear that you're going to have to use 90 and plane a trig in order to do this. But the measurement in the first instance, once you have progressed beyond the flat Earth angle you are measuring to do any of this, is trig and triangulation. However, we don't need to go that far because you're going to start by measuring an angle off a flat plane. You will, we will, everyone will. And you trying to force it to the centre and justify light coming in parallel comes after you've measured the angle, doesn't it? And we will get hung up on this because it proves Earth is flat. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No.
Again, we were discussing this in the pre-show. As soon as you bark refraction as a response to the black swan argument in regards to the physical geometric limitation formerly known as Earth curve, you are essentially conceding that we don't have Earth curve geometry. Crypto Al, did you want to add something? Crypto Al? Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
You're going to need a couple of things for that. You're going to need an R value, and for the R value, you're going to need a flat plane.
Might as well ask, any evidence of the R value, Earth radius? Well, isn't this going swimmingly?
No, there is no evidence for the R value. There will never be evidence for the R value. If you want evidence for the R value, you're going to have to do flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. That'll give you a dual R value and the numbers will match exactly what the globe says.
So, any evidence that you can acquire those elevation angles from a curved baseline?
No, that can't be done.
So to get R, you need a flat Earth angle.
It.
So to get R, you need a flat Earth angle measurement. Can't have a curved baseline.
Yeah, you have to back engineer it from flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. That's how you back engineer the globe. It has to be a back engineering from reality because it isn't reality itself.
Or to put it another way, the globe model is a derivation of a flat Earth measurement.
Yes.
Read it in wheat, boys and girls. Your globe claim for a flat Earth. We always knew it. We just thought it extended to things like Google Earth when they showed the elevation profile as completely flat with no curve. But no, all of them do. The entirety of the model has been derived by measuring a flat plane. You couldn't get to the claims of a sphere Earth without a flat plane to measure in the first place.
That's got to be such an insult to them to know it all derived from a flat plane.
But you could, of course, deny triangles and things like that. Share your pain. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, gravity is definitely has zero scientific evidence backing it. There is no doubt about that.
Had a couple of messages, email, and now someone in the comments who says, who is it? Adam Price, who's one of my Patreons, says, we're calling it a baseline now. Yay! Nobody liked adjacent. Fair enough.
Hello.
Hey, Owen. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, they have effects that they observe. That's it.
Well, the only thing they can so far, or they seem to be able to manipulate, the only thing they seem to be able to manipulate is the name of things that they see. So
well, astronomers, how ironic. Astronomers, you mean?
Yeah.
So they changed the names of stuff, as opposed to your astrology, which is the study of the logic, the movement, as opposed to the naming of stuff.
Right, but if you vary and manipulate the name, would that change the way we view it?
Naming things is a convention that we give things. You know, calling things mammals, that's naming them. Putting them in groups, similar principle. No, it does nothing scientific about an arbitrarily assigned naming structure that we give things.
But it does have an influence on the mind, though, right? The name that we give things colors the way we look at those things.
Oh, absolutely. You can take things like the taxonomic classification system, an arbitrary assigned naming structure for mammals, fish, all those sorts of things, and you can work outside the confines of that naming structure to infer that one species, arbitrarily assigned title given by us, has changed into another species, arbitrarily assigned, named by us. We can work outside that confine and say, look at this. This is evolution. I've named this thing X and this thing Y, and I say that X turned into Y over time. Why? Well, because I arbitrarily assigned X as X and Y as Y, and I'm saying that one changed to the other with the passing of a massive amount of time. Just working outside the construct, working outside the convention. So the convention being the taxonomic classification system, working outside of it, giving you evolution. Shout out to Mike808 for the super chat. Really appreciate the support, my friend. Thank you very much indeed.
Right. Well, I guess it doesn't really fall into the physics category. It's more like psychology, because the name of things does have an influence, right? So if we hear about this telescope and it happens to be called Lucifer, then a lot of people are probably not going to think, wow, that's probably like really boring and super honest, right? Because of the associations of that word. So that's the naming of it has an effect on it, on how people look at it.
Just naming stuff, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing scientific about giving stuff names. If you just give descriptions to the names and categories that you've assigned something, and then describe how those things have changed from one to the other, for example, like I just gave, nothing that
Right.
has no meaning in physical reality. It's just a story you made up based on a convention that you've utilised.
Well, it would fall under the category information, which is supernatural, right? And you can vary and manipulate that. You can, just like you can vary and manipulate the knowing which path information within that officially scientific experiment. So if you could do that, then, well, if you're going to vary and manipulate independent variables within the range of information, why wouldn't that actually be able to be called science?
Let me just paraphrase what Armin's just said. So he's saying that in this instance we've got unicorns, and because there is a description of unicorns, and let's say there's even conventions described around the idea of unicorns, that therefore that which I've just described in that context of unicorns is information. Now, according to Armin, because that information exists, there's no reason why we can't scientifically validate it, because it exists in the convention as, quote, information. So he's taken, dare I say it, a quantum leap from knowledge of the which paths, very specific information that you're manipulating, versus a particular set of ideas, let's just call them, that Arwin then also reassigns as quote-unquote information, making it overly broad so that he can call it science. I think that's going to slip by
I'm
me. What do you think? I
sorry.
woke up an hour ago or something?
No, this is not a ball-win attempt. This is just a genuine experiment, a thought experiment in this case. Like, could that be classified, right?
No.
I'm not saying that very manipulating, like, the name will, like, change something physically, but it will change something else, and that is the perception of the ones that are actually looking at it.
Okay,
Right?
you're over.
It is a thing.
You're
you could
okay. Thank you.
categorize that as a
Okay, thank
thing.
you. Your overbroad description of information doesn't mean it can be validated by science when in the double slit experiment you're talking about which path information as opposed to overly broad information about unicorns, for example. That's not what we're talking about. You're just trying to overbroaden it so you can sandwich in science. A second attempt. Let's see if this carries on. Probably.
Right. I just wanted to say that, yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it greatly. Any evidence you
It's
can have
just an
gas
honest-
pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Well, it all depends on what you're going to call a container. You see, what if you just call it something else, then maybe it might work out.
Like unicorns. Rather than say containment or container, just say unicorns. No, that doesn't
Well,
work.
what if it's just cloaked? What if it's invisible? Like there's containment, but it's invisible, so you don't have to think about it.
Okay. I mean, I don't know whether or not the sky contextualized with this question being about the sky vacuum asserted to be an outer space region we can travel to, but the gas doesn't travel to. Somehow it magically, with a claim to be non-forced bending of a pseudo-Ramonian force space-time, is staying here, changing vector when it gets to the Kármán line. All those sorts of nonsensical violations of natural law, Arwin. When I look out through my window at the sky, let's say it's a clear day and I've got a nice blue sky, which I haven't, I don't know that the blue that I see, which will later turn black, but let's not focus on that, is the container. I don't know. So you're inferring that it's invisible, but I don't know what the visible aspects would be to look for them, do I? So I can't infer that either way, and neither can you. And if you put it forward as a positive assertion of... Go on, whoever that
Right
is.
in the middle, Fort Wayne. Center Fort Wayne.
Say again, illegal? You just hot micing. Looks like it. Yeah, the visible aspect of it, I don't know what to look for to infer if I can, in the blue of the sky, see it, or cannot see it because the containment's beyond the blue of the sky, whatever that may be. Do you see what I'm saying, Arwin?
Right. Yeah. But it's kind of, yeah, it's a sidetrack though, right? Because even my suggestion doesn't say that there is gas pressure without a container. It's just like, yeah, what if it's invisible How would we know it is invisible when we don't have anything we could compare it with, because we cannot very manipulate the invisibility, if it were that, in order to see like what would be the difference. So as far as we know, the sky or the dome, let's just call it the dome for Neil's sake, could be blue or black. Like it could literally be that color, right?
Yep.
We would know. Like that it's not some halo side effect of the lights, but it's just literally that color and it transits like that. It could be that. We wouldn't know until we actually start touching it and fooling around with it, very manipulating it physically.
If we were seeing an effect, we don't need to observe any phenomena to describe containment with a necessary antecedent consequent relationship that is pressure and pressing on something. You know, that is unequivocal in terms of the description. Just want to do a quick shout out because we've got to almost 100 people almost after 15 minutes of the show, which is uncharacteristically large numbers for such an early part of the show. Brilliant. Obviously, somebody's shared the show. And if you are watching this live right now, please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. That's why we've got 100 people watching, because we don't necessarily get punted out to any newbies. But if you're sharing it, that's how they're coming. So thank you very much to all of you who smashed the share button already. But if you haven't, please smash it now. I think we've covered all the housekeeping questions, have we not? I know Brian's keen to present something. Did we cover everything? Molten iron core. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of said presupposed spherical Earth?
There is so little evidence for that. It is comical.
It
You
really
could
is a
basically
myth.
say that there is nothing, right? Literally nothing that even remotely, it's not even a wet paper bag. It's a nothing.
It is a pure myth. It is.
What do you got against wet paper bags?
Well, there is something, aren't they?
They are something.
I still wonder though if the concept of it, not for pragmatic purposes, but for ironic purposes, was originally based on the idea that it's hell, right? What is hell? A giant fiery place. Well, what are we going to make? What is underneath us? The core. Well, let's make it into a fiery prison. It's just molten iron. What could be hotter? Well, it has to be iron though because of magnetics, even though that makes no sense. And yeah, but I think that they did originally design the concept around hell, like the classical Catholic idea of hell.
What do you mean Catholic? Roman Catholic.
I said Catholic, Neil, for crying out loud. I specifically said it just for you.
That's right. Such a hot topic.
Well, Catholicism means universal.
Oh, right, let's stop this
Roman
immediately. No,
Catholicism
stop.
means Roman
No,
Church.
not having it.
Excuse me.
Brian.
Excuse me. I have something
Brian's
else.
waiting in the wings to do a presentation. I just want to point out that every single time I see Phil Bell in the chat, he immediately begs for a sphere Earth. So he's coming talking about atmosphere. Atmo what now, Phil? Beg for me, Phil. Beg for
Well,
me.
he can go to a thrift shop. There's a bunch of used globes on sale.
He's a beggar. Give him a sphere.
I've got atmosphere. It's all sphery. Beg for me. Okay, Brian, in your own time.
Yeah, I just want to present two things. Firstly, this thing here. Can you all hear me pretty well? You can. Right. This here is the globe, right? This is a cross section through it, right? So this is what I'm showing here would be the North Pole, right? This is our observer at the North Pole. This is that observer's zenith. This would be his 90, his or her 90. This here would be the equatorial plane here, right? So between this point here, and if you come around to there, right, or this point and around to there, or any of these four sections, on the globe Earth, this is north, this is south. So on the globe Earth, any of these four sections, the externals of any of these four sections here will all be 5,400 nautical miles. An observer standing here, looking directly up at the zenith, right? Right, takes can take an angle measurement. I'm just going to get another one here. Just 1 second. Can take an angle measurement to anything up from here, right along and right down, and take down. Now they can't take an angle. They can't make an elevation angle, but they can put an angle line right to something in the sky, right down to where this red arrow is. That is the extent of it, right? They can't go any further than this red arrow because they can't bring. If they try to bring this red arrow any further, not only would the curve of the Earth, of the globe, Earth get in their way, but then when they bring that down, it is not a 90 anymore. So it goes past what is their 0 point, right? Because that's the 0, right? 90, right? The angle comes down to 0, right? So they can take an angle line, right, to anything in the sky, and then take a different angle line to anything, and a different angle line to anything, but it gets to 0 eventually. But the problem is, this is where the star would be at 0. Now, it doesn't matter how far away you move the star, right? That's where the star is for them, for their 0. After this red line point, they can't do anything. They, first of all, they couldn't see the star, right, correctly, even if it was far away, because it's going to be starting. Even if it was far away, anything that goes past that is no good because you're going past 90. So you can't even use 90 to 0 because you'd have to be looking down at something. If there was another star down here and far away that you could see, you're looking down past it, what would be 90, number one. But number two, the curve of the globe Earth is going to get in your way. So you have a limit, and your limit is 0, right? So 90 to 0, right? But this here, right, I'm just going to change that color to red so it can be seen. So this here, this red circle, that is the GP of the star, right? And this is an angle from the center out to the star. So I'll just make sure that so there's no messing. That is the GP right there of the star. Now, so an angle from the 90 down to 0, that is 5,400, right, minutes of degree. Now that's supposed to become 5,400 nautical miles on the surface of the Earth. But on a globe, right, that 5,400 minutes of degree cannot make up 5,400 nautical miles because that's the extent that's the 0 for the person standing here. But it's this full section here that is the 5,400 nautical miles. Do you understand what I mean? This full section from what will be the North Pole down to the equator line, that is 5,400 nautical miles. But the furthest this person can see is to the 0, which is here, right? And they can't bring it. They can't, even if they could see past that, which they won't be able because of the curve. They can't bring the line past that because it's not. Then it's not 90 to 0. It's this 90 to 0 and then onto some other nonsense. They're heading back to 90 again. So you can't use that. So the problem they have is that this 5,400 nautical minutes, right, that they can say from their zenith to their 0 here, right, the star that's at this point will never ever be here. They need the star to be here, regardless of how far away it is. It needs to be there, right? And if you bring it as far as you want away, eventually you're going to have to do this. That's what happens. You're going past the 90. You're going past the 0. So the point is that they can never see the star that's down here, regardless of how far away it is. They won't be seeing it. The curve of their globe will get in the way. So they end up. That's the star they can see. So they can never match the zenith distance, the co-altitude distance. Not that, right? They can never match it because they have diverging zeniths. They can never match that correctly with the distances that has to be along the surface of their globe. Well, but if you have parallel lines, then you can match it. Parallel zeniths, then you can match it. It matches exactly, but it doesn't match it with a curved surface and diverging zeniths. Those two things don't match because the star has to be down here and it doesn't matter how far away it is because their angle to it has to go off down there. No matter what way they work it, they don't have a right angle. They can't do it. It's impossible. You don't have a right angle. You're going back up to 90. What is their what is their angle there? Right? They're gone from 90 down to 0. So what are they doing then? They have minus 20 degrees or something. Is that what they have? You know, it's complete and utter nonsense. It can't work on a globe. It doesn't work on a globe. The zenith distance.
Just one question, Brian. I'll just do a quick shout out. So Goldie McKiernan says, Phil passed me this $5 under the table and said not to say it's from him. And no worries, Goldie. I totally understand what you're saying. I will slip you a flat Earth elevation angle measurement under the table, and you can slip it to Phil. Then he can talk about, like Brian is now, how he'd take that angle measurement and make it work with parallel light rays from a centre of a presupposed spherical Earth when measuring out to infinite distances from this flat line. So just my first question, Brian, what you're dealing with is the angle measurements taken from a flat plane after the fact when transposed to a centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with the curved radii value on an area of equal altitude that wouldn't work on a sphere. However, to be inferring any of this, you would have to actually have an angle measurement in the first place, would you not?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you can't do. You can't take an elevation angle off a curved surface.
Well, that was going to be my question. So given that you're inferring in on their behalf that this is the surface of Earth, this circle, well then, if that is the case, how would it be that you could acquire an elevation angle with a curved baseline?
Well, you can't. You can't do that. The point is though, I'm not begging the question for them because I'm not talking about them getting an actual elevation angle. I'm just saying if you took an angle just by looking at something, as it goes down to the point where you can't see it anymore on a globe, then you either, like, it has to stop at 0 for you to do this, because you can't go from 90 to 0 and go past 0, or you have to pretend it goes past 0, but you won't be able, because you won't be able to see the star after a while. The point is that the curve of the route would stop them seeing the star once it goes past 0, right? The 0 point, right, from their position. This is without any actual elevation angle. This is just taking an angle from the person looking at, taking an angle up to the celestial body, and as it drops down, taking another angle. But you're not taking an actual angle with a baseline. You're just doing an angle line from your position and saying, well, it looks to be about this, it looks to be about that. The point is that the zenith distance, right? This is the zenith here. This is the GP of the celestial body here. That's the GP, and that's the zenith of the celestial body. This is the observer, and that's their zenith. So the point is that after this point, it's gone past 5,400 nautical miles. But we've at that point, if you just look at this line here, this is the zenith, this is the GP here at the red circle, right? It doesn't go from here to there. They can never get 5,400 nautical miles, because what's going to happen is, even within their nonsense, they're going to get stopped at 0. They can never get 5,400. They can get 5,400 minutes of degree, but they'll have the diverging zeniths will never match that distance along the surface of their globe.
And the diverging zeniths will prevent them from ever getting a fix from 3 areas of equal altitude because of the diverging zeniths. You've got to have them all at 90 degrees. Quick shout out to Godzilla37, who says, Phil says he can easily prove the globe. He must have been holding out for the last 5 years, but now he has it. Well, there we go. I'm sure he'll let us know exactly what he's got. All he seems to do, as far as I can tell, is beg the question. But there we go. Thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla. Are you done, Brian, or is there anything else to add on this excellent bio?
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to share in a second. But does everyone understand what I mean by this? What I'm doing here?
Yes, I understand how it doesn't work. Can't compute.
Yeah, you can't match the zenith distance, the zenith minutes of degree, co-altitude with the surface on a globe. It doesn't work. That's the main point of this. Now, I'm just going to share a second thing, and this will be stop presenting here, and I'll reshare a different window. This one, just quickly. Okay, I should be sharing now. Okay. Now, you can see this one. Why I'm sharing this is our friends Proto and Ruhif. Why did they keep on wanting to argue about whether two lines are just an angle or whether they're a right triangle, right? Because this is what they keep on wanting to do. They keep on wanting to have this nonsense argument about how two lines are just an angle and it's not a real triangle because there's no opposite side. Well, what that is two things. Number one, what they're doing is they're ignoring, right, the fact that the zenith from the GP is the opposite side, right? It's not just a horizontal baseline and an angle up to the celestial body, because the GP, the zenith from the GP up to the celestial body is the opposite side, right? They're ignoring that. They keep on wanting to argue about this, right? And for two reasons. One, they want to deny that that is actually happening, that this zenith here, right, that the zenith up from the GP to the celestial body is the opposite side, which creates the right angle triangle. They want to ignore that, number one. But as long as they can keep us arguing about this, they can keep on avoiding the horizontal baseline that they do not want to address.
Precisely. So
Yeah.
let's just, you weren't here in the pre-show when we covered this, Brian. So if you get rid of that line that you've just put between the star and the GP, the overall objective of this process, they want to ignore that. Okay. So step one, measure this from the observer to the item in the start. This would be an elevation angle measure then, wouldn't it, Brian?
Yes, that's what it is.
How'd you get this elevation angle measurement if this surface between where it's labelled GP and where it's observer, if that's curved, how'd you get an angle?
You can't.
So this must be flat to do this angle measurement in the first instance. So to put it another way, more bluntly speaking, the measurement of your elevation angle proves Earth is flat.
Exactly. And they want to go around in circles, first of all denying that the zenith from the GP is the opposite side, because then that creates an absolute right angle triangle from the observer to the star down to the GP, and the GP back to the observer. They want to deny that because they do not want to deal with the horizontal baseline and especially height of void correction. Because I've had Proto tell me this morning, right, that the height of void comes up the way, not down the way. Completely not understanding that what he's speaking about there is a bubble sextant, that they don't do any dip or height of void correction, right? And that the reason for the height of void is you have to bring the vertex down to the water underneath the boat. That's the only way to get a correct right angle triangle from the bow or from on board a ship.
But prior to the correction, though, you still, once you stand on the ship holding a sextant, you're still just measuring an elevation angle, though, are you not?
Well, it's not an elevation angle until you do the dip and height of void corrections, because it's not 90 degrees. But
but they're denying the 90. I see how they can get this to be circular now. It's pretty pathetic.
See, if I bring this up a bit, it's not a 90-degree angle. If you know what I mean. If that's to the horizon and that's to the star, it's not a 90-degree angle. But when I do not me, but when mariners do the dip and height of void correction, then it becomes a right angle. Then you have an elevation angle. It has to be a right angle triangle. It's not a right angle triangle until you do the height of void correction.
I don't know if that's how it's defined, though, Brian.
Yeah, you can't. Elevation angles have to be a right angle triangle. There's no other way. Otherwise, you can't use 90. How can you have an elevation if this is, let's say this is a boat up here and this line is up here? It's not a right angle. It's not making a right angle with the zenith. So that's not a right angle.
It's
so
just I got you. It's just where it's defined. So if I read one of them off, for example, it does define it within your specifications. So I've just missed it in that regard. So for instance, measurement of elevation angle. Quote, elevation angle is the angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. In other words, between the thing you're measuring and the horizontal plane. Well, if you're saying that what you're measuring isn't in the horizontal plane because you've got a dip to it, then you've got to correct for it to get it to be in the horizontal plane to define it as an elevation angle. So you're right. I take it back. I was incorrect.
Yeah,
I disagree with Brian.
Sorry.
So does this mean that I don't have to eat the humble? Hold on, I take that apology back temporarily. Fuck you, Brian.
It doesn't necessarily mean that. We could both be eating humble pie by the time we get to it, but
Let's see.
I think the elevation angle is what you measure. Okay, then adjustments for height of above sea level, if you are using the horizon to define your level, is necessary. But the measured elevation angle is still the one you take. If you use an artificial horizon, you don't need to adjust. Therefore, it is the elevation angle. So I would suggest it's the elevation angle you measure, but with the knowledge that this is invalid until you adjust for the fact that you know the elevation angle you've took isn't at 90 because you've not adjusted for your height.
Yeah, so you're paraphrasing what Brian said. So yeah, I was incorrect.
No.
You're right, because if you can acquire it from on the surface of the water, there's no reason to correct either. So you don't need to have this disclaimer unless you've got an induced error. But you're saying that's intrinsic to the geometry, therefore to be an elevation angle as defined, it's got to be off the horizontal plane. And you can go further into the accuracy level by making dip correction. But to be ultimately that geometric type of measurement in the first instance, you will have to adhere to your 90 degree. So I agree. You're right. And I think you've just backed Brian more than me, actually, Adam. I was a bit
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because I think I can see it either way. Because certainly if we've got an artificial horizon, there's no argument. It's the same thing.
Okay, well, let's put it this way. If there is an induced error in your measurement, what are you correcting to?
Flat, horizontal.
Flat. Right.
Horizontal specifically.
Indeed.
Not just flat. Yeah.
Right, but you can't acquire that. You
Brian
can't
says, we're
acquire that
making-
or correct that if the surface is curved. That's the bottom line. That's the argument.
We have the knowledge that if we're going to have to do a dip correction, we know that the elevation angle we're about to measure as accurate as we can will not be accurate because of the induced error of observer height. So we're adjusting to ensure that from ourselves to the GP, we have, as Brian says, that 90 degree. That's the purpose of the adjustment to the elevation angle. See, I still agree with you, Nathan.
Right. So when you make the adjustment, if the adjustment is to correct for a curved surface in actuality, the maths doesn't match, which was what Brian's presentation was initially.
Well, what I'd say is with the bubble sextant or an artificial horizon, there is no need to correct because you do have your horizontal then. But you don't have your horizontal when you're using the horizon, the visible horizon from a boat. You don't have your 90 then because you don't have the horizontal. And that's the point of the dip and height of height correction is to get the 90 because you need the 90 to know the zenith distance, the co-altitude distance.
Ryan is 100% right. Go to Master B, put up the article I just put there.
Oh, 2 portions of pie being served up. Love it.
I'll share.
Altitude correction for sextant sites. Got it up. Go ahead, 10th, in your own time.
The corrections made to the height, sextant, altitude are necessary because the mathematical premise of celestial navigation has the observer taking the sight to the center of the celestial object from the center of the Earth. Since we cannot physically replicate that, assumption, we have to factor in some additional corrections. Here we go, Brian. I won't spend time here discussing the dip, height of eye, or the index correction made on sextant. Suffice it to say that the dip correction is always subtracted proto-tad and is dependent upon the height of eye of the observer over the visible horizon, just like Brian is saying, to get it to a true 90. What did proto-tad say, Brian? It's you don't subtract. He said the opposite, right?
Yeah, he said the height of height comes up, not goes down.
Well, I could list 20 of these that say it's always a subtraction, including from the practical navigator Bowditch himself.
I can share something in a moment. Sorry, thank you.
No, they're a bunch of liars at this point. It's nonsense. Go on. You're doing great.
Yeah, I can share something there in a moment. It's a video I shared in Master B there earlier, or the War Room earlier. And this video, the guy is a well-known guy. You'll know him. Is the Maryland School of Sailing guy, and he goes through height of eye in it. Now it's a bit ridiculous what he shows at first, but I just show. I won't play it because I don't know if you get a strike, Nathan. I'll I just get it chewed up there, and I'll be with you.
If you can paraphrase your way through it, that'd be ideal. Unless you can't.
Yeah, I can do that. I can paraphrase my way through it.
Depends.
Right.
That's why we're waffling. Have you got a picture somewhere of the log that we'd use, where we go and take our sextant and we write the measurements down? I'd just like to see what, because then after that we do dip. So I'd like to know what that angle measurement is defined as within the workbooks that we're taking. If it's not the elevation angle, what it is defined as if we're going to adjust it, or is it defined as the elevation angle with adjustments? Have you
I'll
got
go look for
a
it.
chart?
I'll go look for it.
Yeah.
Thank you, 10th. Wow, this is slick. Okay, Brian, I've got your video. If you can just scroll through it as opposed to play it, though, and paraphrase, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I won't play it. I just show the diagrams. I only need to show 2 diagrams. So here he's showing, obviously, this is supposed to be the globe out. But here he's showing your visible horizon, which is a horizontal, and your location here, there is the lower limb of the sun, and this is the HS, right? So he's showing this is what's happening here, but he then shows to this, he shows, but we have a problem. And he goes to this, height of eye, right? And he's talking about how this red line here is your visible horizon, or the dip, right? Now, this is the geometric horizon, so he's after using here. It doesn't matter, it still makes the same point, right? So he's showing that the height of eye has to be corrected, right? So what happens is, to this end, just like we've shown before, this is from the Maryland School of Navigation. It's only out the past 3-4 days. This comes up to there, and this other part of the red line comes down. So you can use this, because he points out that the HS is from here to here, which is not correct. This dip correction subtraction there, I said subtraction, right? You subtract that up to there, and this brings that, like a seesaw, this end of the line comes up to there, and this end of the line comes down to the surface of the Earth. This here then is your required horizon, then that between here and here is your HS. So that's the dip correction and height of eye correction. As you can see, it's brought down, that's brought up, subtraction. And he goes through then the tables of how many degrees you have to subtract off for, let's say, if you're 8 foot above or 10 foot above the water. But there you go, that's from the Maryland School of Navigation.
Stop. Just a quick question. Are you there, Adam?
Yeah.
This line that you've got, it goes in this diagram from where it's labelled height of eye, and then it's got a picture of your triangle eyeball, and then you've got this line down to the, quote, visual horizon. What horizon would that be?
This is it. According to the diagram, yeah, what they're claiming, that's a geometric. It's formed by the geometry. It's got nothing to do with distance and the eye per se. It's formed by the relationship between the height of the observer and the size of the ball you're looking over.
So it's a geometric horizon.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Oh, right. We are not going to see the geometric horizon, end quote, plan a walk. New quote, the rumpus. The geometric horizon only exists in the maths, end quote. New quote, AB Science. We are not expecting to see the geometric horizon. So I'd like to know why in unholy hell this is labelled as visual horizon when it's something that we do not and cannot and wouldn't expect to see. Why would they call it visual? Do they not know that we can't see this geometric horizon they've labelled as visual? I mean, what is it? No Atmo Day?
Yeah, you cannot use a visual instrument to measure the geometric horizon.
But according to this, it's being measured as the geometric horizon to do this maths, Alwyn. This is a bit of a problem. It reminds me of the problem that Ruhif has got, Adam, which is why I introduced you to this.
I'll come back to him. He's trying to bribe me with money now. It's wholly geometric, and this is the point, that if it is that, and this is the point, the way they've messed about with the claim of Bowditch's charts is they've tried to force it again. You go via their definition, and the dip to the horizon is a geometric function. Now the tables don't state it. They've just got anti-flat earthers demonstrating that the numbers would be the same from their orthographic views. Making it an orthographic correction, by the way, no longer an optical thing, is the way they transpose it. But fundamentally, once you dip as a baller, you're defeated, because in doing so, there is that fundamental statement that your dip horizon is a correction to a leading edge, a geometric physical edge.
As depicted. So I'm calling out AB Science and Planner Walk, who somehow these two fuckwits have managed to escalate themselves in some sort of prevalence in the anti-flat earth community. They have told us quite explicitly, I've got trimmed out quotes from them, telling us in no uncertain terms that this point marked for this maths that's currently being done by idiots like Ruhif cannot be seen, wouldn't be expected to be seen. So, given that this maths for your dip in your fantasy world that you cannot use because you'd have to have acquired an elevation angle measurement from a flat plane, infers that you can see it's marked visual in an orthographic view. How dare they? The ignorance is outrageous. Horizon. This is not capable of being seen, we've been told by AB Science, Planner Walk, Rumpus, and every single clown that barked refraction at us. So, given that we're told we cannot see this, how the hell, talking to you, Rufy, you little bitch, how are you supposed to do this maths, given that you cannot see and we wouldn't expect to see something you're calculating as a visual horizon seen in a sextant? You don't see that globe Earth geometric, mathematical only, Muppet vision horizon as visual. Where you been for 2 years, Black Swan? Don't you know it's not no Atmo Day today? Yeah, refraction. This is not a straight line you have to do this maths with. Yeah? You tracking with me, Sally? Sally Ruhif. You don't have a geometric horizon where you've been for 2 years. Refracted. So do you want to explain that to us? Yeah? And then you can explain, once you've got around it with you begging the question, use of an elevation angle taken from a flat plane. I'll ask you how you got the elevation angle from a curved baseline. Obviously you can't. Flat Earth required. It's game over. Every fundy out there, you need to know the score. You don't have a geometric horizon anymore. That's Earth curve. If it wasn't blatantly obvious it was game over in 2020, then it should be now, because you're trying to utilise the straight lines you got from that Earth curve, and you've told us for 2 straight years how bent they are. So you can't even do this geometry to get around how you'll use a flat Earth angle measurement. Doesn't even work after the fact, because you immediately revert to a straight line geometric horizon you have yourselves debunked. Refracted, right, dickheads? It's completely game over. Game, set, match, checkmate. You've got nothing.
Yeah, all these lines should be bent, really.
Yeah, what is this? No Atmo Day? Yeah? I mean, should I play a few clips from Planner Walk telling us that we're not expecting to see this point that you're calculating with in Muppet Vision, that we definitely don't see it in? I mean, what is it, 2017? Why are we still presenting things with height of eye? Oh, right, so we're talking about what comes to the eye. Well, I don't see the side of my own bloody eyeball ever. I certainly don't see the side of my own eyeball and a visual horizon that's a single point. This is a horizon. Is it this single point in Muppet Vision? That's not a horizon. That has absolutely nothing in common with a horizon whatsoever, and I never see my own eyeball when looking at a single point horizon that doesn't exist ever. This is all nonsense.
I would like to point out that in my kitchen, the required horizon and visual horizon is the same point.
We only have one horizon, and the horizon in the Begging the Question Proof of Nothing Perspective Hijacking Earth Curve Calculator was, prior to the Black Swan, geometric. It was a physical limitation called Earth Curve that used to block boats and buildings with its physicality. Now we are told, at nausea, it's not Earth Curve, it's refraction. Non-geometric, bent line, not capable of doing this maths. It is game, set, and match, checkmate. No longer a sphere. You require a flat Earth angle measurement to assert that you're on a sphere. It's absurd.
If it's not visible, then you can't dip to it, can you?
No. If you can't dip to it because it's non-physical, non-geometric refracted, then you can't get around your after-the-fact use of a flat Earth angle measuring technique that uses a flat plane to measure an angle to explain how you're dipping to a geometric horizon that you cannot see.
But then what are you adjusting to? If it's not to the ball and the ball's not where it should be, so you're therefore not lining up. You're lining up to a refractor point which will move every single day. Therefore, this point of adjustment throws you off. It's no longer establishing a 90. It's just throwing a random number in each day to pervert your actual reading. Because if it's no longer making you level because you're on a ball and because it's moving every day and fundamentally, as they claim, it's not actually visible, what are you aligning to make the adjustment is the point. It's nonsensical.
They're aligning to an optical position we know as the horizon. It's the not actual location, non-physical location, where the sky appears to meet the ground or sea.
That's no good for the Bowditch's tables in the ball Earth claim. They claim it's a geometric thing, which is why it's a relationship between height of eye and the geometry of the surface.
Black Swan. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to that geometric horizon could be measured only at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the distance to the horizon in the Black Swan imagery is in excess of the Earth sphere geometry, claimed to be a sphere Earth with a geometric horizon. Therefore, we do not have a geometric horizon confirmed by our own opponents. Refracted. That's non-geometric, non-physical. Bent line to a non-physical position. Not Earth curve anymore.
This diagram is actually, even though it helps us, it's still a train wreck because just go to his other diagram there.
It's fundamentally begging the question. You're on a ball, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it is. Like this is actually if this is begging the question. He's on a ball up to a point still, right? This is your visual horizon. It's a straight line out. But then when he goes to this one, his visual horizon is down the way. But then he has this dip correction subtraction, right? But what he's subtracting from is his actual line to would be his line to his visible horizon is down, and his line to the sun is up, right? But that's not a 90, it's more than a 90. So subtracting it to create a 90 by bringing the height of eye down. You know what I mean? That's what he's doing. He's creating a 90. And all this is purely like this big correction down here. And I'm sure there's tables in there. I think there is tables in there for the basically a correction from the geometric horizon. But that this geometric horizon doesn't exist. This other big geometric horizon correction is a heap of nonsense, right? It's just a correction form to bring the height of eye line down, which bringing that, like, it's all you're actually doing is correcting from here down to this black spot. This red line down here, that's not where you're looking. You're looking out to this other one where he has required horizon. Yeah, required. You mean the actual real one? No, it's nonsense. It's like that's his actual visual horizon, I can't, because it's on a video, I can't show any annotations. But the line should be going from here to here, not here down to there. And it should be corrected. And the correction then is to bring that down to here so it lines up with there. You're lining your eye up with the surface of the water. But look, it still shows what the height of eye correction is. Do you know what I mean? It's, even though it's begging the question, it still supports us.
Okay,
Will I unshare it?
Yeah, that's all good. Anybody else got any comments on this? You mean the formula? I think
do,
we're
but
all
it's
right.
not
Brian.
direct.
Go ahead, John.
Sorry, Nathan?
I said if you were talking to the formula, no, we're fine. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say something that my wife brought up about the responses to anti-flat earthers and how they're trying to drag us away from the main points into sophistry, because when someone new to the subject or people that haven't heard the information, if they hear the confusing side where they try to obfuscate and spin their rhetoric, it just leaves people confused. And she made a point that being concise with the argument and sticking to the point that wins is really important.
And really hard.
Out there. Yes, and it's really hard, especially when you have people responding to you with absurdity.
An ad hominem that you feel like you might have to defend, or a red herring that they throw out that you feel like you've got to chase after, or a straw man that they position in terms of your argument you haven't made, or stereotyping fallacy that relates to the entire community, or straw man they've been handed, or whatever else that they get you chasing after when all you want to keep banging home is that you can't get a flat earth angle measurement, that would be an elevation angle, if the surface beneath your feet is curving.
Yeah, she said that was one of the hardest things for her to get by. And she actually told me what it was that caused her to start laughing. And
Oh, great. I asked you to... Yeah, go on.
Well, she said, look, after she stopped laughing this last time, she said, it's really simple. If you want me to show you a sphere, I'll have to measure it flat.
That's precisely correct. If you want to assert that you're on a sphere, you're going to start by taking the angle measurements from a flat plane and then deriving sphere values from them.
Yeah, even little kids can understand that, that doesn't work,
Not if you want to infer that the actual surface is sphere shaped for real, because it isn't. You've derived that idea and notion from your angle measurements that came from a flat plane. So with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And thank you to you in the live stream for smashing the super chat, hopefully liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!